Hello everyone, this is OGAE Azerbaijan, and today we have a very special guest, a rock legend of Denmark, who also was part of Eurovision Song Contest with his band Mabel, and they performed Boom Boom back in 1978. Today we will get to know the one and only Mike Tramp.
One for the money, two, don't let it go. Three, 'cause you want it, four, you better know.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Can you please tell us a little about yourself?
Well, all the way back in 1976, I made a decision that obviously would change my life forever. I had never had a plan to join professional music. I loved football, soccer, like all my other friends in the neighborhood. But I also liked playing guitar, but more just about to sit along with my friends and sing along with the songs and stuff like that. But then somehow a friend of mine, said, this band is looking for someone to sing. And before I knew it, I had joined this band. I had left school, and in the summer of 1976, I already become a professional musician, meaning that everything that I do, all that I do is music. And the band is called Mabel, and we record our first album, and we play around Denmark and so on. So a few shows in Germany. And in 1977, we start recording our second album, and we're kind of like molding ourselves around English rock bands in the 70s. Status Quo, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, Slade and Sweet. And also that year, or towards the end of the year, Denmark decides that after 12 years of being away, they want to get back into the Eurovision Song Contest. And but in the years when I had been involved in music, nobody spoke about Eurovision Song Contest. It wasn't a daily word in the music business. So we didn't really know what it meant, but our record company says, we think we should send one of your songs in. And 9 out of the 10 songs we had on the album had nothing to do with Eurovision Song Contest, but they thought this other song, Boom Boom, which originally on the album is called Message from My Heart, could work. We were singing in English, and then, we do this demo with the Danish lyrics, and they send the song in, and a month later we're picked along with 5 others. We still don't really know what we do. But one thing that's important to the story is that the second we stepped in to the Eurovision world, to start with in Denmark, national TV and stuff like that, we went on a compromise. Mm-hmm. Everything from that day on was a compromise. It really did not represent the band, but it's almost like we had bought a dog and brought it home, and now we need to feed it, and there was no turning around.
And actually, as you mentioned, you joined Mabel a very young age. You were only 15 years old back then, and you also received like teen idol status. How did it feel to receive such achievements in a young age like that?
It was something very strange, because I often talk about that if you were to ask someone today, they would always have something else to compare it to. We've been watching American Idol, The Voice, X Factor. People know about this world today. Mm-hmm. In 1976, Denmark had 1 national TV channel and 3 national radio channels, and there were none of that. The hysteria was something that went on in America and England with the Osmond Brothers, or the David Cassidy of Bay City Rollers. So that was like a faraway world. And then suddenly, the next day, it was outside my window, outside my door, and everywhere I went, young girls would run around following me. I don't think I ever really got used to it until later on. But in 1976, 77, 78, I was so unprepared for this.
Actually, now you are inspiration for younger generation. But back then, who was your inspiration?
Well, yeah, I mean, my inspirations were, of course, a lot of the English rock and rollers, especially Freddie Mercury, especially David Bowie. I mean, I really liked the front men that really had a show. And so they became some of my idols, Elton John, Slade and Sweet, later on Thin Lizzy and Van Halen. As I also were growing older and I started feeling closer to my heroes as I was when I was 15 years old.
In 1978, as you mentioned, you represent Denmark in Eurovision. Can you please tell us, do you have any funny memories from back Eurovision?
I'll give you two completely different ones. I remember there were an old-fashioned, telephone booth, where you put coins in backstage. And 10 minutes before I'm about to go on stage in front of the national Danish audience, I call my mom and I says, Mom, I'm going to go on stage now, stuff. And she says, oh, we're all here sitting at home, getting ready. And I always said to my mom many years later, Mom, why didn't you just tell me to run? She says, Forrest, run, Forrest. And another thing is that nobody was prepared for that. In the concert hall that held around 1,500 people, maybe 1,400 of them were our fans, screaming girls. So it was like the Beatles that we had grown up watching. And suddenly when we went on, it was just hysteria. And when the different places in Denmark had to vote when it was done, all of them started saying, we don't want to disappoint the little girls. We also vote for Mabel. Some of these girls that followed me back in 1978 is still in front of the stage when I play today.
Actually, after participation in Eurovision, you and your band moved to Spain and later to New York. What made you to decide to move overseas?
The journey from Denmark to Spain was an escape because things in Denmark had become completely so indifferent to us. It wasn't about the music anymore. It was more about sort of another way of paparazzi where you were always looking for the wrong story. Never a story about, Mabel is releasing a new single and playing a concert there. No, there's always something that had nothing to do with us as a band. Mm-hmm. And I started really complaining to the other guys in the band, which were almost 10 years older than me. It says, I hate this. It's horrible to be here. I hate everything. And then we had gotten the opportunity to come down and perform in Spain. And when we went down there was a record company says, man, why don't you move here? We will really, help you guys, launch a career. So, we said, wow, this is a great opportunity. But there again, bit by bit, we still became sort of a teeny bopper band where the music was secondary. And I always thought and I always asked the other guys, but we're a band. We play songs. We play instruments. So I basically closed and killed the band and started the band as a whole new name. And then we went to New York, which became the last half year of our career until I went back to America and then started the White Line legacy.
You created bands, A White Line and Freak of Nature, using different genres of rock. Was it more kind of like experiment to find what's close to your heart? Because White Line is pop metal and Freak of Nature is like hard rock.
Both bands represents two different decades. White Line is in the 80s and Freak of Nature in the 90s. But let's start with White Line. When I come to America in 1982, it is the beginning of what you would call the big 80s. It's the birth of MTV. It's the birth of real music videos. And the sound of the 80s are the bands like Def Leppard and Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, and there. So when I started writing the first songs of White Line together with Vito Bratta, that's just the songs we start writing. I mean, we're right in the middle of the 80s, so it just becomes natural. When the band ends in 1991 and I decide to start a new band, it's also the birth of the new decade of rock sound. It's sort of like the business got tired of the colorful, the 80s, the big hair. Now here comes Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know, the whole sound is changing. Fashion is changing. Everything in the world is changing. It's almost impossible not to take some of those new influences with you in the songwriting. So that's why those two bands are so different.
After all this crazy roller coaster, you decide to start your own solo career.
So in 95, I start my solo career. And I also decide that my music has to represent myself 100%. My songwriting is an extension of my Tramp as a person. The word I and me in all my songs is about me. So now it becomes like storytelling through my songs. And now 26 years later and 12 solo albums, and here's Everything Is All Right. And that could have been on my first solo album because it's the true DNA of who my Tramp is when he's by himself.
Mike, you did also lots of singles and albums. As the way it was before was the inspiration of events what happened 9/11. You made a music video, Trust in Yourself, which was directed actually by your son.
You can follow like sheep or trust in yourself. No God, no religion, nobody to rule over.
One of your songs, When She Cries, is dedicated to your daughter. In generally, how you get motivation to write the songs?
Well, I mean, it's sort of just like looking in the mirror and listening to your heart of how you're feeling and those kind of things. Interesting thing, I wrote the way it was before in early 2002 when I was living in Tasmania. I could have written that song today and it would have a similar meaning because you could now refer to the way the world was before the coronavirus came around. And a lot of Mike Tramp's lyrics are about being alive and dealing with the goods and the bads. Traveling down the highway, stopping, looking back at your life, seeing where you're going, and then carrying on.
And Mike, since you mentioned about this COVID-19, how it affected to you as a musical artist?
I mean, obviously, all artists have been affected by, not being able to play live and touring. On the other side, it hasn't affected me in songwriting or what I can do at home in my studio. I was on my way to do a big American tour, and I had just come from Indonesia, Jakarta, where my wife and children are. And now I have been away for 1 year. That is beyond anything I could try to explain of how that feels. I feel like I've landed on a deserted island and I don't know how to get back.
Are we expecting any albums from you soon?
It could go either way. I have released a lot of music over the last couple of years. I've come with a new album every year and a half. Around Christmas time, I released an anthology called Trampthology, 20 songs from my 12 solo albums. And that was before I even knew that I was going to be part of first the Danish Melodi Grand Prix and maybe a possibility of being part of the international one. That's one of those things that comes in that could just really change a lot of different things. But what it's not going to change is my songwriting or where I am as an artist. It's just really about something different in the calendar. I want to try to follow what feels natural. Even if I wasn't to win in Denmark, that my song will survive and will be remembered. And it's also what I want to be remembered for. Now suddenly a lot of people in my country knows my name, but a lot of people in my country don't know my songs. Now they will know that song and the name Mike Tramp attached And that's probably more what I'm hoping for than anything else.
Let's actually move then to Danish Melodi Grand Prix. How did you decide that you would like to participate in Melodi Grand Prix? And how was the selection process comparing back to 1978?
Probably was a similar thing. I mean, at least I didn't have to go audition. To me, it was really just about, let me see what song I can write or what I maybe have lying around, a song that 100% represent me. I've never been a fan of being part of any contest because there's a lot of people saying that the winner takes it all. And I like to leave something behind, even though I'm not the winner. So all those things were decided once I knew that I had the song. I feel 100% that I can go up on stage and represent my Tramp 100%. Of course, it's an interesting story in Denmark that this is a 43-year comeback. And of course, in those 43 years, I made 25 albums, played with the world's biggest rock bands and so on. So
this year is the second year in a row that Dansk Melodi Grand Prix will use a live orchestra. Does it bring your memories back since back in 1978, the performances were also conducted by live orchestra?
Well, obviously, that was one of the must thing for me. I says there has to be a live band. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go in there with my own band or if there was going to be a live band. And it happens to be a lot of fellow rock musicians playing that band. So when I rehearsed with them, it was really cool, and the band sounds phenomenal. So it's a big boost. After all, I am a live performer. And I remember when we were playing the song in 1978, I didn't think our song fitted with the band. I didn't think the band played the right thing. I didn't think it was a nice arrangement of the song and so on. So today you would have handled it completely different, but everything was new back then. And I think maybe even though the other guys in the band which were the songwriters back then and the musicians and the knowledgeable ones, I think also they were confused and scared of how much can we say, how much can we complain about, how much can we change, or should we just really follow? Today, I just went in there the first time I rehearsed with the band and we started the song and it was just perfect. We only played the song a couple more times just because it was great to play it, but they played it perfect, better than anything I've ever heard first time I played the song. So that made me really happy.
What plans do you have for staging? I mean, will it be you and your guitar or?
Well, I mean, obviously there's not a live audience, and I'm not really sure about how the stage will be for the show until when we do the rehearsal here on the 4th. But I have requested that I like everything to fit who I am. Nobody's going to be dancing. It's not going to be any fire. It's not going to be any dragons. There's nobody going to be dressed like Vikings. It just seems like that Will Ferrell movie is representing, Eurovision Song Contest better than Eurovision Contest is. So again, I'm happy that Danish television wants to support me in being who I am. I said to a newspaper the other day, even though I have been playing rock and roll all my life, toured with Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, this is the first time I am the bad boy. I had to come back to the Eurovision Song Contest to be the bad boy, but I'm still the good guy.
Actually, as you mentioned, this year it will be without audience. Does it somehow affect on you?
No, not at all. I'm really good at that because many times in my life have I played a live show with no audience because nobody came. So the show must go on, rain or shine or whatever happens. But obviously one thing that is good about that is that you have the sound of the live band. So you're not alone.
I guess you also have heard all other songs from Melodi Grand Prix. Do you have any favorite?
Well, actually, you're incorrect there. I've only really listened to 1 minute of each song. So no, I don't have a favorite. My favorite was in 1974, and it was called ABBA.
Yes.
And that's the best song that still to today has ever been part of Eurovision Song Contest.
What does it mean for you to win Melodi Grand Prix and represent Denmark in Eurovision again?
I think in many ways, I try to believe that I would represent a bit of the old-fashioned way of songs and songwriting, not the visual performance, because the visual performance today is what it is. Technology is technology. But like I said early on in our interview, what I had grown up with, what I thought were great songs from the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elton John, Candle in the Wind, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, the great songs that will live on forever. If music is still listened to in 2,000 years, those songs will still be there. And I think all the songs in the middle that has come after will be forgotten. It's just one of those things. So I look upon it, and it maybe gives me a bit of strength that I not just do I represent rock and roll as a general, that I also represent the electric guitar, because a lot of the songs have become so electronic, and the electric guitar, you almost can't hear it. It's not even part of it anymore. And then, I represent the way it was before.
Mike, I also would like to ask, can you perhaps sing a little of your song?
Well, let me see if I can find a guitar here. I happen to have a couple of guitars lying around. One for the money, two, don't let it go. Three, 'cause you want it. Four, you better know. Five, you can make it. Six, and now you're gonna stay. And that's what I'm talking about, campfire singing. You can just pick up a guitar and you can play your song and people will remember it.
Thank you very much. And Mike, do you have any message for your fans?
Well, if I still have any fans out there, then I hope that the sound of my music puts a smile on people's face. And also, of course, thank you so very much for the support through all the many years. And I hope that I get a chance to come play to a lot of all of these countries that will pay attention to what I'm doing now.
Thank you for the great interview, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I sure did. Thank you very much.
I wish you a very good luck in Melodi Grand Prix and hope it will be a successful entrance.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Have a good one out there.
You too. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.